Welcome back to another episode of the Codcast, Season 3, Episode 5. I'm your host, Matt Pajak, and today we have special guest, reigning 2024 Cape Cod Baseball League batting champion, Jarren Advincula. Second season with Cotuit, hitting at the top of that order. That lineup is trending in the right direction as we hit kind of our July stride here. So we're going to bring him on. We're going to talk about his experience on the Cape for a second summer. He played in that Citi Field game. He homered in that Citi Field game. So we're going to talk all about that. And then in addition, we're going to talk a little bit about this Kettleer's lineup that posted some pretty large run scoring totals this past week on the Cape. I'm going to bring Adam Greene in here after that, do this week on the Cape. We've had a number of outstanding performances in the past week, and guys are starting to get hot, and lineups are starting to solidify a little bit. So a lot to get to, but before we get to any of that, without further ado, let's bring Jarren in and let's talk to him. As promised, we have the leadoff man for the Cotuit Kettleers, Jarren Advincula, back for his second summer on the Cape after winning the Cape League batting title in 2024. Hailing from Northern California. He's got the Archbishop Midi t-shirt on there. For those who don't know, storied program there. You got a number of big leaguers went to Archbishop Midi, correct?
Yep. Yeah, we got a couple guys, and we got like 3 or 4 guys in the big leagues right now. So it's been a rich tradition for sure.
Yeah, Nick York probably most recently drafted, but maybe more notable Mitch Haniger and Chris Bubich.
Yep.
He's had a really good year this year. Is he still at Kansas City?
Yeah, we just saw that he's going to be all-star this year, so
yep. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you did your first 2 years of college up at Cal, and you recently committed to Georgia Tech. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
What kind of went into that decision to make the move to the East Coast?
It was kind of a hard decision, leaving Cal, but one of the money makers on that decision was James Ramsey. He's a great guy, really personable, one of the better hitting coaches in the nation, and Georgia Tech's a really good school, and they lead the nation in averaging doubles every year for the past 5 years. So. And the team's great, so it was kind of just a perfect match, and I'm really excited to go. So,
yeah, I mean, one of the better hit tools in the entire country, I think, regardless of class, and I think you'll fit right in there. It's not just like it's been the past year or two; it's been the past however many years. Mm-hmm. Georgia Tech's just had a number of guys in the lineup that just hit a ton. So, kind of a perfect fit there. Again, congrats on that. But I want to kind of get back into this being your second summer on the Cape. What's different this time around in Cotuit?
We have a different coach. So we got Coach Hibbs, who's been great for us, and I really love him. But it's a different culture for sure. So I'm trying to get used to it, and but it's a great experience so far, and I love the new guys out on the team. It's kind of nice staying with the same host family, so I have kind of the same routine. So it's been a really good experience so far.
Yeah, talk a little bit about your host family experience. Is it a solo deal there? Is there another player in there with you? Talk a little bit about, kind of the family that you're with.
Yeah, I'm living by myself in the basement. So, but the Bodino family's been really great to me. I'm really grateful for them. It's funny story. I don't know if you heard the little ringing in the back, but I got this dog right here. Name's Coda, little black lab. I lost her one of the first days I got here. She ran out on me, and I started panicking. I was like, "Damn, what's happening?" I started freaking out. And, but ever since then, it's been a great experience. So that was a little funny story.
No, that's awesome. That's one of the unique things about the Cape is kind of these these different host family experience that you can have. They kind of run the gamut. Obviously out of necessity because there's so many players that come in and out of the Cape every summer, and it's such an important part, such a foundational element of the Cape experience is the host family. So it's good to hear that you're having that experience, and always good to have a dog around.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite spots, food spots or, beach spots or anything like that? Obviously you're a Cotuit veteran at this point. Where do you frequent, especially on like an off day?
For me, there's I don't really do a lot on off day. I try to get as much rest as possible, but we go to a polar cave. It's a little ice cream spot right next to the field. They have like homemade waffle cones that are just awesome. But we also got Tomatillo's. It's a bar and grill that's literally the only place that's open past 9. So that'll be my dinner spot here pretty much twice a week.
Yeah, I forgot about that. It's the thing about the Cape is that nothing's open late.
Yeah.
What do you, so back home in Northern California, what's like your go-to type of food out there? I mean, are you Mexican? Are you eat seafood? Have you been able to find anything comparable on the Cape?
Back home, it's diversity for sure. So it's just like a lot of Chinese, Asian food, Mexican food, American food. So I kind of get all the mixture. I'm not gonna lie, you probably won't get a lot of Asian food over here, but it's there's definitely a lot of mainstream stuff that's over here that's pretty much the same in California. But other than that, like I love the one thing that I love different about out here is the lobster rolls. I had the first one last year, and I was like, damn, this is different.
Are you a cold lobster roll guy or a warm lobster roll guy?
Oh, the one that I had was cold. So, but warm probably sounds good too.
Yeah, I do like the cold one better than the warm one, but had to ask because I know that can be a polarizing topic. Any shellfish? You a shellfish guy?
No, I've never tried.
You gotta try some whole belly clams.
Okay.
Just add that to your list before the end of the summer. Well, cool. I want to talk a little bit about the Citi Field game. So, it feels like it's becoming more and more frequent for like high school players and college players to have the opportunity to play in a big league stadium before getting drafted or before getting into the professional ranks. Have you had an opportunity to play in a big league stadium before, or was the Citi Field game the first time?
Yeah, well, I've had 2 workouts at Padres and Dodgers when I was in high school, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. But we never actually played like a scrimmage. And in high school games, I know that there's a lot of high schools that play like either from here that play in the Red Sox Stadium, but for us that never happened. So this is the first time I've ever played in a scrimmage or quote unquote game that on a big league stadium, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say how cool. First time playing in a big league stadium in like an actual game and having an opportunity to put a ball out.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's surreal. You kind of like dream about those scenarios. You go second deck in the big league stadium, any big league stadium. But to do it at Citi Field, and it was a special moment for sure.
Did any players stand out on either side of the field? Either a pitcher you faced or a player that you played against or a player that you played with that you haven't previously played with in your mind is someone that kind of impressed you?
Yeah, for sure. I got Henry Ford, was actually going to Tennessee, but from Virginia. And, always played against him this year. I always kind of wanted to know how his process worked. And it's kind of nice talking to him because, he hits. He's a great hitter and he's a great dude overall. So it's kind of nice just to play with him finally on my team, not on the opposing team.
Yeah, it's a cool experience because it's a little bit like an all-star team, but when the all-star game rolls around here in a couple weeks, obviously he's in the East, you're in the West, so you wouldn't have an opportunity to share a dugout there. Not that there is an intermingling, but for the Citi Field game, it's kind of cool that it's a full league-wide thing and get to intermingle with guys from all 10 teams. But no, that's awesome. Were you floating a little bit coming around first base when that ball went out?
No, I mean, when I hit it, I was like, oh my gosh, like, no way that I just did that. And then, you kind of like black out. I don't know if any of the baseball players know that out there, but, when you hit a home run, sometimes you kind of just black out running the bases. Like that actually happened.
Yeah, I heard you got it good. Well, no, that's great. I want to talk a little bit about the Kettleers. So 4-2 in your last 6 since you got back from Citi Field.
Yeah.
You put up 19 the other night against Brewster, and then 8 and 11 earlier in the week. So the offense is really getting going. Talk a little bit about the lineup. Obviously, you're at the top, but some of these guys that are starting to get going, Ryne Farber, Caden Bogenpohl is a newer name here in the last week or so. He's a pretty impressive physical presence, and the bat has shown up. And then a catcher from Cincinnati, Jack Natili.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about sharing a lineup with some of these guys, what they bring to the table, and kind of how you guys have started accumulating runs the way you have.
Yeah, we've had, with the addition of Bogenpohl, our lineup is pretty dangerous. And as you see, we put up 19 runs this past game. So I think it was a Cape Cod record, and that kind of just shows like what tools we have and how much talent we have too. Ryne Farber, he's our guy, he's our leader. Just play the steady shortstop, and dang, is he hot at the plate right now. And Camden Johnson, we have just so many tools that when it comes to power, when it comes to speed, that's why the Cape makes it so special, just because the players that you get on one team kind of just like, dang, like imagine this actually being a college team. But our lineup is really talented, and hopefully we kind of just keep progressing forward.
Yeah, it feels like you guys have a chance to get hot here in July, kind of as this lineup starts to solidify a little bit. I think that's kind of something that you start to see at this time of the Cape season is, there's a lot less transition in and out, and a lot of guys kind of locking in, for the next month or so as, you head towards the playoffs and the end of the summer. So, talk a little bit about playing with Rintaro Sasaki. I know that he was in there for a couple of weeks. He had a couple home runs. I think he's, out now, but what was it like sharing a dugout with him and kind of seeing him in person?
It's kind of funny. Like you kind of just walk in with him, you meet him first, and you don't realize that like he's just this big celebrity. Yeah, but honestly, great dude overall, and down to earth. Super nice, and it's kind of just a pleasure just to be around him and be around his presence. Super funny. So it's kind of just a good guy around to have around the team, and he wants to win. And so, like I said, it was just awesome just to play with him. He's just one of the coolest dudes I've met. So.
Well, it sounds like there's good vibes going in Cotuit right now. Hopefully you guys can keep that going. Best of luck the rest of the way. And hopefully we get another couple of 19-run outbursts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to do. So we'll see.
All right, Jarren. Well, I appreciate the time. Go enjoy your off day.
All right. Thank you.
Welcoming to the show now, senior writer Adam Greene for This Week on the Cape, taking us around the Cape. What's exciting? Who's performing? Players of the week? Who's trending? No one's got a pulse on it like Adam Greene. Adam, thanks for joining us again.
Of course, it's good to be back. Season's flying by. It feels like we're almost halfway through. We're gonna have some all-star selections, so coming up on that's exciting. But it's been a pretty crazy last week, just in terms of like the shakeup of the standings, I would say. YD had such a like sizable lead over the East last time we recorded because they were on some crazy I think it was a 9-game winning streak and might have gotten up to 10, but they've kind of slid a little the last couple of weeks. Harwich just beat them last night. They're right there in the standings. The Brewster's not too far behind. And then over in the West, I mean, what's going on there? You have Cotuit putting up like 19 runs one night, and then the next night they allow, or the night after they allow 16 runs to Wareham. But so the standings are just all over the place. Falmouth is looking good. They've crawled back to 500. They're 9-1 right now, and then of course you have the Harbor Hawks still at the top. So it's been a fun week for sure. And then player of the week, we had Jackson Freeman from Northwestern with Chatham win hitter of the week. He was putting up some really nice offensive numbers. He had a couple knocks on 4th of July and a homer. And then over on the pitching side, we had Matthew Heiberger from Harwich. He's at Alabama. He pitched 7 1/3 innings of relief, and he struck out 6 people. He did not allow a run, a couple hits, but overall just a really good long reliever for Harwich. And that's really key when you have some guys that are in the rotation that, are only going 3 to 4 innings. You got to bridge that gap over to the late inning relievers.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit more about there's 2 things you hit on there that I want to hear more about. One is kind of YD sliding in the standings, and I think you did a little bit of research on the offensive side, dug in a little bit on the numbers, and it doesn't really seem like they're doing too hot in a number of different team offensive categories. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I was just curious as to what their offensive numbers were looking like. So I pulled up the team stats last night, and I was pretty surprised to find that they were so low in some of the offensive categories. This time last year, they were absolute world beaters, and they were by far at the top of all those offensive stats. Homers, hits, like all of the counting stats, and then they're at the top of average, slug, OBP, and OPS. This year, they're currently 8th in average, 10th in OBP, 6th in slug, 8th in OPS. So I was kind of just curious as to why, one, why is this happening, and two, how they stayed so consistent with those numbers. And what it seems to be is just that they're getting into these late inning situations where the game might be close, and then their bullpen has been really dominant. They've been able to shut guys down with combinations of guys like Bo Rudy, Tyler Pitzer, former player of the week. So they're able to hold on to these late leads, even if the offense isn't, igniting anything late in the game. But that also lends to games like last night where Brewster puts up a crooked number. They have a 4 or 5 run inning and the game's 7-1, and they might just be out of it. So I'm curious to see, is this a trend? Are they gonna kind of bounce back, or is that first place lead in the East maybe not so safe? Is a Harwich or a Brewster gonna come claim that? So it was just something I was looking at. And what was the other thing you mentioned?
No, before I get into the other thing, you called out
Yeah, go
Tyler
ahead.
Pitzer, former player of the week, and I think yesterday he went 4 2/3, 1 hit, no runs, 2 walks, 4 Ks against Harwich. So he continues to throw well, which is obviously good to see. He could be potentially an all-star candidate here in the next week or so as we get there. But the other thing that I wanted to call out on the other side of things is kind of Harwich piecing together the pitching, and that kind of being the backbone for their success up to this point in the season. Talk a little bit about the Harwich pitching staff and kind of how they're winning baseball games.
Yeah, their entire I could just give you a bunch of different guys, but with a holistic view of it, they've really come out strong and look like the for sure best pitching team in the league. They lead the league in ERA and WHIP. The great combo there. If you're not letting guys on base, runs are not going to score, and that's the when I think about what makes a good pitcher, if you can just prevent guys from getting on, if you're not limiting hits are one thing, you're always going to get hit around. These are some of the best hitters in the country. But if you're just pounding the zone and you're limiting walks and you're playing sound baseball, I think that's really beneficial, and that's what's going to put you over the top, especially in a league like this. But they're also right up there for the top of the league and kind of things like, batting average on balls in play. They're right at the top with 220. They're not allowing hard contact. They might not have the strikeout numbers of some other teams, but they're also not they've given up 6 homers. So like some teams have had games where they're giving up, 2, 3 a game. So to be able to keep the ball in the park, that's also a really valuable thing, especially at White House Field. It's I would say it's a pretty pitchers friendly park, but the ball can for sure carry. When you're playing on the Cape, so they've been really good. And again, with the reigning player of the week, Matthew Heiberger, he's been great in relief, and a couple of their starters have went deeper into games than they had at the front of the season. So all around, it's just looking like they're really coming together, and they've been hot. They're on a 3 or 4 game win streak, and they're, as I mentioned, pushing for that top spot in the East.
It's a scrappy bunch. It doesn't feel like a team that goes out and scores 19 runs in a game, but it feels like tonight it's going to be Bristol Carter, and last night it was, Trey Broussard and Maddox Maloney, and Aiden Robbins has shown up in the past week or so to kind of help that lineup out. Obviously Tyler Bell and Eric Becker are 2 guys that got selected for USA.
Right.
They're over in Japan now. Will they come back? We don't know, but it's just a little bit like, someone is stepping up every night offensively to support that scrappy pitching staff. And it's scrappy top to bottom. There's no one superstar.
And what's almost even more interesting for me about that is, like, even after they lost Jake McCoy, who was so dominant, he was probably the best pitcher in the league for the time he was here. Then you have other guys like Freddie Rodriguez and Ryan Vilka coming in, and they've, like you said, just someone's stepping up every night. So that's a recipe for success right there.
No doubt. I want to talk about a couple guys that are getting hot. And, last week, for anybody who was listening, you had a very distinct assignment. So let's talk about this first. Tegan Kuhns, Brewster. It sounds like you got out to Brewster. It sounds like you saw Tegan Kuhns yesterday. What do you got?
Yeah, I made sure I was like, if I don't do anything else this week, I'm going to watch Tegan Kuhns pitch. So I got to see him last night, and he was filthy. He was as advertised by you. So I was very happy I got to see him pitch. The thing that stood out to me the most, or I guess I'll go over his line quickly. I believe he went 5 1/3, a couple hits. He came out of the game without having allowed a run. I think when the reliever came in, one of the runs that was charged to him scored. So he had an earned run there. But he had 9 strikeouts. So he was missing a lot of bats. But what was more impressive to me than missing the bats was the amount of strikes he was throwing. I was just mentioning how I think it's really important to be not walking guys and, limiting traffic on the base paths. He threw 80 pitches, 57 of them were strikes. That's just not something you're going to see a lot from a college arm, someone that's not as refined or someone that's not as experienced as, someone playing professional baseball. But he was looking like just an unbelievable pitching prospect last night. I was very impressed. And from what I could tell, he was hopping out at 95. So I don't know if that's a tick up from where he was last week, but he looked great. And his stuff was playing again, missing the bats. And when you're missing bats and pounding the zone, that's a pretty scary pitcher right there. That's not someone you want to face. So he would look like everything as advertised for Brewster. And it looks like they took a little dip, but they could also be back on the up if they just keep that consistency that they've had for the last, I guess, kind of week or so now.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you were in for a treat yesterday. And hopefully the Brewster fans will continue to be in for a treat. I think Kuhns only had like 36 innings this past spring, but he did start a fair amount of games at Tennessee, and he's one of, as of last week, I saw a stat somewhere, 4 arms on the Tennessee staff that are expected to return next year that either aren't going to get drafted or didn't go into the portal. So he looks like he's going to be a weekend guy at Tennessee next year. He looks like he still has plenty more to give here, and obviously he's performing at a high level for Brewster. So, in an era of college summer ball where there's a lot of guys who are here to figure things out, like you said, you don't see strikes like that and kind of like that refined pitchability that we're seeing from Tegan Kuhns to go along with, above average to plus stuff. Yeah, it's a really interesting arm that's actually on the Cape for more than just a handful of starts. So
Right.
That's been awesome. There's a couple of bats that are kind of trending. I want to call out a couple guys from Wareham. Hunter Carns from Florida State. I don't know. Have you seen Hunter Carns yet?
Yeah, it was when I was in where was I? No, sorry, it was Orleans, and they were playing. That was Ty Daly's last game, and that's when Levi Clark was really hot. So I got to see some of his at bats there.
Yeah, he's as of today, which is July 7th, he's played 8 games on the Cape. He's got a 536 OBP, 2 for 3 with a couple RBIs, 3 runs and a stolen base yesterday. The day before, 3 for 4 with a double, home run, 4 RBIs against Falmouth. He's stuffing the box score every night. He's as tooled as anybody, and he's a really exciting player that will hopefully be here through the remainder of the summer. And the other one I want to call out is Colby Turner from Michigan. He had a really good year at San Diego State as a freshman, transferred to Michigan, kind of had a down year. And it feels a little bit like Ryan Farber in the Cotuit lineup, who had a really good freshman year and then kind of had a step back sophomore slump during the spring, where they've really found their groove on the Cape. And Colby Turner yesterday, 4 for 5, 2 home runs, double, 7 RBIs, 3 runs versus Cotuit. And then earlier in the week, 2 for 3 with a home run versus Bourne. He's a guy who's now got his average up over 300, I believe. That OPS is starting to crawl towards 1,000.
Over 1,000, looks like.
Up over 1,000. So there you go. Colby Turner, Hunter Carns, trending, giving Levi Clark some support in that Wareham lineup. I'm going to throw it over to you for the Maika New report.
Yeah, he's been so impressive. Also just a great guy. He came up to me before one of their games, and he was talking to me about his love for baseball, and like that's what I love to hear out of these guys. Because at the end of the day, like they're playing the sport that they love, and hopefully they can make a career out of it. And he's looking just like he's going to do that as one of the top draft eligible guys that's actually currently here, and he just keeps raking. I think he had a couple more homers this week. He's up to 7, which is the league lead. And his bat plays is the most simple way I can put it. He's been really good for Falmouth. They've been pretty hot this week. They've climbed to 2nd in the standings. And I don't want to just list off categories at you, but he leads the league in OPS, slug, like all those stats, homers. So he's been really good. I think there's not much I can't phrase it any better than just like really good player. He's right behind Henry Ford in RBIs. So another good player there. But Maika New's been fun to watch, and like he's like pretty slick defensively too. Like he's for a shorter guy, like I wasn't sure how well he was gonna look, but he's been nice. He made a couple nice plays on the 4th of July. I was down in Falmouth watching them play Cotuit there, and that was a fun game. So there's everything about him screams like going to be a good baseball player when he gets drafted, and I think the only thing he's done here is really just boost that draft stock.
Yeah, it'll actually be interesting to see. We're approaching the draft next week. This is actually a good segue because I wanted to talk about this a little bit. So he was at Marshall this past spring? He's at Marshall. He recently, as of I think this last week, he committed to Arkansas for next year. So that's going to give him some leverage. So it'll be interesting to see what he does in the draft. Obviously, he's putting up big numbers on the Cape, potentially raises his stock a little bit. Is there a pro team that's going to pay him, or is he going to use that Arkansas leverage and end up at Arkansas next year? If you think about it, he goes to Arkansas next year and he has a really big year at Arkansas. There might be even more money for him after that. So he's sitting really pretty heading towards the draft next week. Probably not a position he saw himself in a month and a half ago before the Cape season started. Let's call it a month ago because the Cape season's about a month deep. So I do want to talk about the draft a little bit. Obviously you covered the Cape last summer as well. And as we head towards the 2025 MLB Amateur Draft, that'll be taking place, I think, July 15th. I think it's 1 week from now. I might have the date wrong, but it's next week. Any names from the Cape last summer that you kind of want to call out as, players you're excited to see come off the board?
Yeah, it's looking like Iva Arquette is gonna likely be the top Cape alumni drafted. You can find him anywhere on draft boards from like I've seen him at the one on a couple. I don't know if he's gonna go that high, but he'll probably go inside the top 5, 6. So our streak of our streak of first overall picks might not extend past 2025, but we're still gonna have plenty of talent drafted at the top. So excited to see where he goes. Ike Irish obviously had a great season with Chatham last year, and even after moving to the outfield at Auburn last year, he's going to go for sure in the first round. Kyson Witherspoon's one of my favorite arms to watch. He was electric for Chatham, and then back at school this year at Oklahoma, he was fantastic. Merrick Houston is going to go really high. Brendan Summerhill was had an interesting summer. He actually got hurt in the All-Star game as a pretty freak injury, but then he went back to Arizona and had a fantastic season. He's going to go in the first round. And Wahiwa Aloy, the Golden Spikes winner, actually was with YD last summer, and he had like one of the most memorable weeks I've ever watched someone play baseball. He had like 3 multi-homer games. He just lit the world on fire. He was like it was the most obvious player of the week selection ever. I remember I got the notification and I was just like, you could have announced this like 3 days ago because he was that far ahead. So he's going to go in the first round as well, I would presume. So those are some of the names. Then you get some of the guys lower in the first round. Caden Bodine's going to go. Ethan Conrad's going to go. So it's an exciting draft. And then you have some guys that are that have been really good on the Cape League that are obviously going to go and one of those 19 other rounds from 2 to 20. So I'm really excited about it. It's going to be cool to see where some of these guys go.
Yeah, it's my favorite time of the year. I know this draft class might be a little bit down across the board, across all the different demographics, but
yeah, I don't know if there's Paul Skeens at the top.
Yeah, there's no Paul Skeens at the top. There's no super electric high school player at the top. It looks a little bit more like you're buying into some power. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but as you mentioned, there's going to be Cape League alum all over the first round, all over the second round, and it'll go as far as you follow it, just like it does every year. The Cape League is the most highly represented, probably shared experience of any college or amateur thing. Probably even more so than East Coast Pro or area code games, where it's a single league or event that has the most alumni. So that'll be exciting to watch. I have Arquette. That's a good call out. I think they're probably the guy that goes the highest. Excited to see how it goes.
That'll be fun. And just want to note, I'll pull up the date. It is, or at least round one is Sunday, July 13th, live from Atlanta. So looking forward to that.
It'll be exciting. You'll be down there.
I will. Yep. It's going to be my first time actually being able to be at the draft. So I'm excited to get down there and see how everything goes and represent the Cape League. So all good things.
Well, have fun, travel safe, and we'll be sure to get a nice little recap next week from your time in Atlanta. Another episode of the Codcast in the books. July 7th, Matt Pajak, Adam Greene. We'll see you next time.